Can you see this? This is the inaugural episode of Office Hours with Dr. G, presented by Recruiter.com, where we will take your questions from the previous week and as well as questions that you send to us live during this live streaming Facebook presentation. And wish us luck. We're here to be of help to you. Who is Dr. G? I'm Dr. G. My name is Dr. Mark Goulston. I work with Recruiter.com, and I work with them to help you as a job seeker to be as hireable as possible. If you're a recruiter, also getting the best talent for the companies that you place people in, so that increases your reputation and the buzz about you. Or if you're a company, making sure that you hire the best people, because you're under a lot of pressure to hire the best people. And in fact, something that job seekers don't really understand is that there's more pressure on you, the person hiring or the person recruiting you as the job seeker, than there is on you. The reason being is if it doesn't work out for you or you don't get the job, you just go to another interview. But if that recruiter or that company decides to hire you and you don't work out, they're in that company or they're that recruiter, and there are going to be questions to be answered. How did you bring this person into our company? What were you thinking of? So it's important to keep that in mind, because a lot of our approach here, and my approach, is going to be focused on if you get where the person's coming from, if you get where their company's coming from, and if you get where the company wants to go, and if you get where that person wants to go, you're going to differentiate yourself from the competition. And that's the question we're going to address today in Office Hours with Dr. G. The question is, how do I differentiate myself from the competition when I'm applying for a job? Very important, very challenging question. A friend of mine, Ike Krieger, is this genius at social media and at marketing. And one of the things that he told me that has stuck with me is he says, you want to be different. You don't want to be better than, you want to be different. Why? It's because everybody claims that they're better than the next. You go to one website that's better than their competition and it all looks the same and everyone's puffing themselves up. So what you really want to be is different. People remember different, they don't remember better than, because everybody's claiming to be better than. So I often, when I teach, I like to give people stories about examples about how to be different than. One of my good friends is a fellow named Jim Mazzo. Jim Mazzo is one of the top CEOs in Orange County, California. He was the CEO of a company called Adaptive Medical Optics. They make that blink solution that you use to put in your eyes to lubricate them. And years ago I read in the newspaper, on the Wall Street Journal, that Abbott Laboratories had bought Adaptive Medical Optics. And I didn't even know that Jim wanted to sell the company. So I reached out to him and I said, hey Jim, what's that news about? Because I thought you were fine with your company, it was growing, and how come you sold it to Abbott? And he said to me, he said, Mark, let me tell you what happened. I got a call from the CEO of Abbott Laboratories. I think his name is Miles White, something like that. And he says, Jim, we've been looking at your company and we're thinking of adding it to our portfolio. Why don't you fly to Chicago and talk with us about that? Because we're interested. Now, Jim's kind of feisty and he's very confident and he's a great guy. And so he says to Miles, well, I'm really not that interested. And by the way, you have a corporate jet with Abbott. We don't. Why don't you fly to Orange County and meet with me? So you can get a sense that Jim has a certain amount of, chutzpah and courage and boldness. So what Jim tells me is that Miles flew to Orange County, and then Jim said, he didn't tell me anything about Abbott. What he told me about was my company, me, and my company and my future. What he basically did is he had read up on our company, and he knew more about our company than I did. I mean, he did a deep dive, or his people did a deep dive. He knew things that I didn't even know. And then he also knew that I was in my middle 50s and that I wanted to grow what we had, but I probably didn't want to give up control because it was going pretty well, and that's one of the reasons I wasn't looking to be bought. But he told me that that's exactly where I was, that probably with more money he could grow the company even more. Also, if he bought the company, I would be on the board of directors at Abbott, and he'd refer to me as the other CEO because that's who I am. He also would give me a great stock price, which I wanted to do to be right by my shareholders and stockholders, and he basically knew that I wanted to grow things, have control, get a good stock price, to be able to grow the company, and then be left alone. And so that's exactly what he offered me. This is what Jim told me. And he said, so how could I say no? So what's the takeaway from this story for you as the job seeker? The recruiter or the person interviewing for a job, what they're thinking about is their future. What they're really thinking about is that if they make a decision to hire you or recruit you or put you into a company, they want that decision to reflect well on them, so that when they're getting reviewed by their bosses, people say, that was a great hire. Get us 5 more like that. That's exactly what's on their mind, maybe not consciously, but unconsciously. So what you really want to do is to be able to do a deep dive into the company. What's going on in the company? Why are they hiring this position? This is all the research you do before you speak to the recruiter or the interviewer. Why might they be hiring this position in order to do what? Where does it fit in? So you need to understand exactly the position, what it's going to be accountable for, what you're going to be accountable for, what the roles and responsibilities are, and how that fits in with the overall strategy. A lot of job seekers are just trying to check boxes, give people their resume and hope it sort of works, but they often don't show a deep insight into the company. So the takeaway for you that we can learn from Jim Mazzo is, if whoever's interviewing you, and if it's a recruiter who doesn't work in the company but works for the company, that recruiter is what you want to know is about as much as you can find out about that recruiting company. Find out as much as you can, and this may be difficult, about the person interviewing you, their background, so you get a feeling of where they're at. If it's possible, get a sense, I don't know if you can do this, their age. You might find that on LinkedIn, because at different times in people's career, they're looking for different things. And so if you can identify what the company's trying to do, and you can do this by listening to podcasts or reading statements that the CEO has made to their shareholders about what's going forward and what their plans are. So that's what the CEO of that company is committed to, and so you're being hired to make that successful. Also, what you're trying to do is give the person recruiting you or interviewing you a very specific description of what you can get done and what you've already gotten done. Because people really don't care what you know, and people don't care that much about what you can do. What people are wondering is, what have you already gotten done that was successful in a company like ours, in a position like the one we're hiring for, and how did you make that happen? So the more you can drill down into that, the more credibility you'll have, the more confidence you'll have, because you'll feel like you're not winging it. But also, one of the ways to differentiate yourself with the recruiter or the interviewer is if you feel like you're developing rapport. A great question to ask them is, in a very polite way, add this saying, can I ask you a hypothetical question? And they're going to say, what? Now they may be taken aback. You say, can I ask you a hypothetical question? Hopefully they won't refuse that. And what you say to them is, I'd like you to imagine that at your next performance review, where your decisions and what you've accomplished this year are brought up to evaluate you, I want you to imagine that the people evaluating you say, that was an amazing person that you hired, or that was an amazing person you brought into our company. Get us several more. If they say that, they're thinking that your decision to hire whoever you hire for this position, they're thinking you're promotion material for yourself. That's worthy of a raise. So drill down and tell me about what this person accomplishes between now and the time when you're reviewed, so that the people reviewing you can say that was an amazing hire, and give me as the best description you can about who they are, what they do, what they can accomplish, kind of what their attributes are, their qualities, what are some of the negative things that they don't have, what are the positive things that they have. And what will happen is the person who's interviewing you, when you ask them that question, there's a good chance that their eyes are going to look up to the ceiling like this. And they're going to keep looking up like this because you've made them think and go down more deeply into figuring out the best candidate. And when they look back at you after they've looked up in the ceiling to figure that out, it's not going to be a transactional conversation. It's going to be better because you've helped them clarify who they want to hire so that they can get ahead. So we hope this is helpful, and this is a taste of what Office Hours with Dr. G will be in the future. Please send us your questions so that we can answer them. Perhaps in the future we will answer more than one question, but we wanted to do a deep dive on that because that's such an important question, how to distinguish yourself from the competition. Hope you've gotten some takeaways from this. Hope you like this. Hope you'll tell your friends. And hope you'll check out Recruiter.com if you're a job seeker, if you're a recruiter, or if you're a company looking to hire your next hire. Take care. Be well.